I'll now call to order the City of Newburgh Rate Review Committee meeting for tonight, January 13th, 2026. And Natalie, can you conduct a roll call?
Thank you, Ned. Derek Wharf.
Here.
Einan Borkel.
Here.
Mary Meyer. Leisha Adams. Derek Duff. Ned Knight.
Here.
Ron is going to be a little late today. Roger Kuhlman is on virtually.
Here.
Raquel.
Here.
And Peggy.
Here.
That concludes roll call.
Okay, thank you. Okay, time for Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I'll now open the floor to public comment. Natalie, do we receive any public comments?
No, we have not.
Okay, hearing that, I'll now close the public comment session. Next up is election of officers. And I'm doing this because I was vice chair last time. So at any rate, so nominations, we're going to start for chair of the committee. Nomination?
Motion to nominate Ned Knight as our chair.
Thanks.
Second.
It's a classic move.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, okay. And does anyone have a second? Okay, I guess I accept. All right. Okay, now we need to take a vote. All in favor? Raise your right hand, left hand, any hand. Okay. All right, any opposed? All in opposition? Okay, so I guess the committee appoints moi as chair of the committee.
It was unanimous.
Yeah, oops. All right, next nominations for vice chair. The silence is deafening.
Who's on virtually?
Just throw him under the bus.
Right,
We're pulling out all new tricks today.
yeah.
Motion,
I make a motion to nominate Roger as our vice chair. Where am I looking?
I would be happy if somebody else was interested.
Okay, second.
Raquel for the second.
Okay, any other nominations? Supposed to do that the last time too. Oh, well. Hearing none, let's take a vote. All in favor of Roger for vice chair?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All opposed? It's unanimous. Okay. So the committee appoints Roger as vice chair of the Rate Review Committee. Okay, so we're now going to pass it over to the meat and potatoes of tonight. And I think Will starts off with the first presentation.
You can sit there.
Oh, I prefer to be.
Like on stage, come on, but this way we'll get it.
Yeah, right? Really?
Unaccustomed.
Honourable members of the Rates Committee, I would like to now begin looking at the wastewater capital improvement projects. But first of all, I want to just mention that we were tasked 2 years ago with building an entirely new rates model and making sure that every project in the current list was one that was not only critical, but one that was planned to be built in the near future. And we have done that. So you will see the projects that we're going to talk about are all ones that are in the near-term horizon, except for the water plant. And the water plant, we're continuing to save money for that. So I'm going to get into it, and here we go. In the last 3 years, I have finished my second master's degree and taken on a leadership role in engineering matters, and I have learned a lot. As you will see, the city now has an enviable record of completing CIP projects on time and under budget. In the last set of rate review meetings, we were challenged to redo the rates model from scratch, and that is exactly what we have done. Everything in the model needs to be done in the near to medium future, and there are no wish list projects. With that said, the nation and region is still continuing to see high inflation, and it was especially high just a few years ago. To answer the challenge you have set me, we have built an entirely new capital improvement program choosing process from scratch, and that was in your packet, as well as a new TUF, that is transportation utility fee road selection process, and I included those documents. One difference from this model and the last is that we have not cited specific projects beyond the first 5 years, except for the known factor of the needed water plant. We have put a placeholder for expenditures that we are sure will come, but we've not added granularity beyond the near-term 2 biennium horizon, because we cannot know what the priority will be. This is a more intelligent and flexible approach. It lets the city tackle things as they come up. There will be no more adding projects that we may never need for a given decade. So you remember items, perhaps you'll recall things like the redundant water intake have been removed, and other things that we cannot know for sure that we will need in the near future. The city continues to work on debt reduction. If we can get rid of our current debt that heavily burdens wastewater, we can avoid adding more than the city can pay for infrastructure without interest, and that is a no-brainer. You may say what progress has been made on debt reduction. The first item of debt has already been retired, and it's only 3 months early. But the second piece of debt, the one that we've been working towards, the communications tower debt, is going to be paid off in May. That means we will be removing a line item from your utility bill, the communication line item, 2 years early. And then we're going to continue to work on the next piece of debt, and so on and so forth. Lastly, we have become more effective, but I may need more staff this go around. We have been holding the line except for the sidewalk crew and have added several thousands of people. So I am working towards trying to figure out how to have some more staffing as the city continues to grow at a rate of approximately 1% per year. First, completed projects. You are unaccustomed from previous meetings to hearing about completed projects, and now you'll get to hear about completed projects. The programmable logic controllers, which upgraded the wastewater plant, and I asked you guys to be here. Expense total for the first biennium was just over $1 million. Its system development charge eligibility was unfortunately zero. It involved upgrading the system at the wastewater treatment plant, and this budget overrun, it was $80,000 over budget. It was not acceptable, and it could and should have been estimated more accurately, and the staff member in question no longer works for the city of Newburgh. And now, finishing soon. And when we do each of these every meeting, we're going to go through the ones we finished or finishing soon, and then the future ones. The I&I study and report estimate expense total for the biennium $340,000. SDC eligibility is nil. The I&I study refers to the city's inflow and infiltration. This is critical because it will enable us to know where we should direct future I&I project dollars to do repairs. And we have finished collecting all of our flow meter data. We are compiling it right now, and we'll be working on that report. We've also completed another component of this, which is a smoke test, which has indicated some cross connections that we need to fix. And that will be coming to a wrap very soon. The row of things you see lined up are flow meters, which we didn't have proper manuals for, but a former Intel employee that we hired, who is a genius, figured out how to make them work and communicate with our system effectively despite not having the right documentation. Thank you, Danny. And here is another part of that. Then the picture shows you a smoke test. When you do this in the stormwater system, you should not see smoke coming out of a sewer manhole. That tells you that there is a cross connection. And so Keller Associates, who we've been working with, have been integrating the data and gathering it to develop the plan to make a future hit list.
Well, what do you mean by cross connection?
Ned asked, what is a cross connection? And that is where incorrectly the sewer line and the stormwater line are cross connected. And some cities only have one system. We're lucky enough to have two separate systems. And when they're cross connected, it increases our inflow and infiltration because water just flows directly into the sewer when there's a heavy rain. We also are holding back $300,000 for general pipe replacement. We have not spent this money yet. It was budgeted for. This is in case of unexpected events. So we lift the ground and the asphalt, we find something that is worrisome, we'll have some wastewater money to deploy to fix that unexpected event. Hasn't happened as yet. Now, here is a thing that I gave you some extra documents about for this evening. That is a picture of sewage, and it is coming out over in Crestview. So you see where you see the grass there being pushed over, that is sewage pushing the grass over. And one of the purposes of the Top Hats project, which will begin as soon as the weather dries up, and it will be finished by the midsummer, is to fix 90 odd lateral connections so as to reduce infiltration flow into that particular sewer line. Do I believe that that will entirely fix that problem? I do not. That sewer line is being surcharged by the new housing developments which we have added at Crestview Crossing and Crestview Greens coming up soon. We're going to continue to see excessive loads entering that part of the system. So you're going to find out that we're going to actually be looking to replace a piece of the sewer line. And one of the public works staff had the rather brilliant idea of putting a new sewer line down the side of the airport, down the side of the runway, so that we cannot have to dig up so many roads to run the new line because it will be cheaper. Now, this is a brand new idea that we're just exploring, but I've given you some information about it. For now, it is my hope that this top hats, by the way, I should say what a top hat is. A top hat is a piece of plastic that lines the lateral and goes out and lines the beginning of the trunk line to make a top hat shape. It seals the join between the two pipes. By doing 90 of those, we hope to reduce the amount of inflow into this particular sewer line and make that event less common. Although I think if we have a 4 or 5 inch rain, we're still going to see that event simply because of the surcharge. Yes.
You said a lot of this issue was because of the development at Crestview.
Yes.
Is there any SDC from that development that can go towards this?
Yes, the development has contributed system development charge money towards this project. We will be able to take money for fixing some of these sections, but I believe the eligibility was 20 or 30% for the upsize. It's never the full deal, but it is helpful.
Thanks.
Not bad for pretending to be an engineer on TV. Okay. And there is a quick graphic that I found illustrating what is a lateral. And as you know, we all have them in our houses, and this is going to seal some of them. And now I'm going to bring into focus some of our big projects, and these are for the near future. And as I say, we're only focusing tightly on the medium term. This is the big one. However, I will say that thanks to the wisdom of keeping steady increases in our rates model, we have sufficient cash on hand to do this project between our SDCs and between our wastewater fund. We can afford to build this thing. Now, I expected that this thing was going to need to be built in about 7 years. It was further out on the plan. Well, our good friends with Oregon State sent us a letter, and the letter says that they expected that we were facing winter flows which were reaching capacity for this treatment plant. But not being one to simply trust our good friends in Salem, I ran a capacity study with Keller to get an independent answer. And unfortunately, the Keller result lined up with the state's analysis. Let me explain why we need to start this in this biennium. If we do not start this soon, the next time we have to build a lift station, that will require to have a DEQ permit. They have the right to not give us any more permits if they believe that we have exceeded our winter flow capacity. What would that mean for Newburgh? That would mean that all construction throughout the entire city, whether residential or commercial, industrial, it would all stop because we could not build anything, because we could not add any load to the system. We would have a construction moratorium and possibly fines. Now, the fines would be a lesser dollar amount. But we believe we have to do this. And so this plant expansion is in the model, although we have the cash in hand to pay for it right now. Now, we are waiting for DEQ to respond to a secondary clarifier stress test that we did. Let me explain what that means. There is a piece of equipment in the wastewater plant which clarifies the dirty water so as to separate it out into solids and liquid. And the liquid is then treated in a contact basin with chlorine so it can be put back into the river. Now, we were adamant that we thought our current clarifier could be run at a higher rating and thereby save us money on having to build more clarifiers. We stressed the dickens out of that thing and had the guys working night and day for 3 days straight, pushing as much dirty water through it as possible. The results were very positive. We were able to run the existing secondary clarifier at 8.5 megagallons per day. Once DEQ accepts this decision, this will reduce part of the cost of this project. And the reason why there's a dollar range up there right now is I know pretty tightly right now the costs of each of the other elements, but there's a $6 or $7 million delta based upon whether we have to build an extra secondary clarifier. We're going to wait to see what the state says to agree with the test that we've sent them. In either case, even if it is the worst result, we will have the liquidity on hand and due to begin this project because you have let us save up the money. You have helped us get to this point so we don't have to add debt to do this thing.
And can I just add, that's very unique because a project this size between 25 and 30 million to be able to cash fund something like that without having to do a property tax bond or raise the water rates to do another sort of various loan, that's very unique. So we are very, very lucky to be able to maneuver this, which Deb will show you in our financial presentation later. But we're very lucky that we have enough cash that we don't have to burden the residents with this huge project that we have to do.
Now, the thing about this is, and recognized, the thing about this is that it has been with extraordinary fiscal discipline that we have got to this position. We have kept staffing, I would say, unreasonably low and built up reserves to be able to accommodate this mission. So I just want you to know where that came from. It didn't just happen. It is an efficient administration, a supportive council, and a lot of discipline. Yes.
My question is, if we can get by with one secondary clarifier, for how many years would that be estimated to serve? And could the wastewater plant be built with a capacity to later install additional secondary clarifiers as needed?
Precisely. So what we plan to do is, if the state tells us that they can accept that we don't have to have an additional secondary clarifier, we're still going to build the infrastructure when we re-dig up all the pipes and we build the third oxidation ditch. When we build the oxidation ditch and the conveyance pipes, we're going to leave ourselves ready to buy another clarifier and wait 5 or 6 years to buy another clarifier. Then we'll be set beyond 2040. That means we will have no reason to add debt to the city's ledger for wastewater into the 2040s. Okay. It's a big number, though. It scares me.
I do want to recognize it's a huge contribution to be able to deliver that. Thank you, Deb. It was your guidance. It was your recommendations on how to structure this that helped us get here. And we chip away at it. So thank you, Deb.
Here's a bit more about the project. I just wanted to show you some of the site pictures. Now, to save another bit of money, we plan to redo some of the bays that are already there and add drying equipment to them. So we're not planning to use the drum dryer method. We're going to use the bay dryer method because we looked at 3 possible methods in an alternative study that Keller did, and so we're choosing the cheapest method. Here's a bit more. Sorry to go on about this a bit, but this is just such a big deal that I thought it was important. The project will ultimately build another massive 300-foot concrete oxidation mixing ditch. It will have mixer paddles, another secondary clarifier, we hope not to, build compost bays, and that shouldn't say convincing, that should say conveying equipment for human waste. But it will also be convincing equipment for human waste because we will then give it away to the community mixed with sawdust because that's what we do. Thanks to the foresight of the committee in adding this to the funding model, if we had had to debt, here's my thing. If we had had to debt fund this thing, the cost to the ratepayer would be 30 to 40% more than by paying for it by saving up the money. With that said, this update will create sufficient capacity to carry us through to the 2040s, even if our population continues to grow at the current 1% per annum. So that is the end of the capital projects. As you saw, it is a much reduced list from what you've been used to hearing, and they're all things we're about to do. All of the presentations will be like that. I will say that the package that sits before you is modest and conservative as staff were directed. We have rebuilt the rates model as described. Notably, this level of increase may or may not enable us to get more staff. And during the next 2 biennia, we must start to add more staff to keep up with population increases. I've given you a handout that you certainly need not read this evening that explains the secondary ask. This time we're coming to you on wastewater with 2 price points. One includes an additional 50 cents per month, which we'll cover later. That is to enable us to fix that sewer line quicker. Otherwise, I have to do it at $500,000 a year. I would like to do it at $1 million a year so as to get it done in 3 years so we can stop leaking sewage. Otherwise, we're going to do a sewage surcharge every fall over a longer period of time. It will take just under $2 million to build this pipeline. We think right now that is a wild estimate, because we haven't done the engineering study. But that will be by going through the soil near the airfield for most of the route in order to save the money. We're not making decisions tonight, but I ask you to study the documents because ultimately the decision about sewage will be yours. Are there any questions about my presentation whatsoever? We've all worked really hard on this.
I was just gonna jump in really quick. So, just to go over this, the process again. So we're going over the presentations for wastewater tonight and for this particular one, we're giving a couple different options based on fixing this pipe. And so what rate increases we would need for with and without that. And then, the next meeting will be water. The meeting after that will be stormwater and tough combined. And then the final meeting, we will have an overview of what the proposed rate increases will look like. And then that will be the voting meeting, just so that we're all on the same page on the process.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
We were asked to have less meetings as well, so we've done that.
Another question. I'm looking ahead at the current sewer rates. I was just wondering if the differentiation between commercial 1, commercial 2, commercial 3, is that based on something that is locally specific, or is it based on a model in the state or I don't know, what is that based on?
So I could only answer that in generalities. I think I'd rather defer to Deb, who is better at the specifics of that one.
Yeah, in prior rate review processes, we've conducted what we call a cost of service analysis, and that looks at what is driving the costs that the utility has to recover every year. And a certain portion of that is flow, so just the volume of wastewater. And a portion of that is also the concentration of the wastewater. And so we estimate for those subcategories of commercial what the wastewater concentration is. So restaurants and things that have a higher pollutant load per unit of volume, they pay more. And so it follows industry standards, but it's based on the particular mix of customers that are in those classes and an evaluation of what goes into the treatment plant, and then allocating that out to the different customer classes. Great question.
And so if we had a new business, we would rely upon our regulatory staff to help figure some of that out. If it was a bottling plant or a food processing plant, we would start to figure that out.
Going back to one of your earlier ones where you're talking about the Newburgh I&I study, you say one of the goals is reducing stormwater overflow. And I'm trying to recall, and I'm sure you would know this also, Deb, does that budget have some I&I that could help out here? Or is that above and beyond what this is?
The I&I budget is specifically dedicated to stop inflow and infiltration into the sewer system itself. But as a side effect of doing I&I projects, we clean up and de-spaghettify some of our cross connections.
Right.
So both systems would actually benefit. Actually, an engineer talk on that one. Pipelines.
All right.
Oh, well, we're the original. Seeing none, I shall vacate the chair.